Thinking about it. We are live on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Today is Saturday, July 22nd. My name is Chris Crawford. With me today is my buddy Drew Silva. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff today. A lot of it pitching. We're going to be talking about some young hurlers on the rise that we really like for the second half of the 2023 season. And of course, long term, that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, but also going over some Cy Young odds. But first, we got to do some headlines. And there's a lot of call-ups to talk about. And not long before we started recording, it was announced that Sal Frelick is going to be joining the Milwaukee Brewers. Frelick, one of the best prospects in not just the Milwaukee system, but widely considered one of the best outfield prospects in baseball. You're going to take a look at the numbers and wondering what the heck you're talking about, Christopher Vincent Crawford. But here's what I'll tell you. This is a guy who missed a lot of time with a thumb injury. And when he's at his best, this is a player with a 70 hit tool, 70 speed. And what's really going to help the Brewers and a little bit fantasy managers, because it's going to put him in the lineup, is he's a terrific defensive player. He can go get it. Now they get a chance to move Joey Waiver into right field. I'll just ask you, Drew, is Sal Frelick somebody that you're considering rostering in 2023?
The talent comes out far more in what he did in 2021, 2022, like his first foray into pro ball. Like last year, a 331 average, 883 OPS, and 557 plate appearances between high A, double A, triple A, rose really fast through the Brewers system with that hit tool. He's got some speed. I don't think the power is quite there yet.
No.
I mean, the numbers this year have not been good. I mean, you explained it. There have been some injury issues. I don't think he's someone I would rush out to get. I think he's a really well-rounded, competent hitter, doesn't strike out much, is going to make a lot of contact and use that speed well. But hey, that Brewers lineup, we've talked about how underwhelming that Brewers lineup usually is on a night-to-night, day-to-day basis. If he's hitting at the top of the lineup and using that speed, I could see him, taking on mixed league fantasy value, but he's not someone I would overspend on. I don't think he's quite there yet to the point where he's going to be a ready-made significant fantasy contributor.
So I kind of go back and forth on this. I think I would be adding him, and only because of the fact that I think that he has a chance to help in three categories. I think he can help in average. I think he can help in stolen bases, and I think he can help in runs. Just for some context here, again, he missed a bunch of time with the thumb injury, and I wonder if it was bothering him a little bit before and maybe a little bit after. But last year in 46 games with Nashville, this dude hit 365, 435, 508. There's no question about the talent here. There's some ups and downs. If you're playing in a slugging percentage league type of thing, he might hurt you a little bit more than he helps you. And I don't think the counting stats are going to be there for homers and RBIs. But I do think that stolen bases are going to happen. I'll be curious to see where he's hitting in the lineup. I don't think hitting in the bottom is so bad. Hitting behind Christian Yelich this year is not such a bad thing if he's hitting 8th or 9th. It's a little bit of a risky one, but especially if you need help in that stolen base category, or maybe looking for a little bit of a uptick in average. I think Frelick is somebody that I would consider targeting. A couple of pitchers are going to be making their debuts pretty soon too, Drubert. Let's talk about Jackson Wolf making his debut for the Padres.
Yeah, that's coming up on Saturday night. He's getting the call for the Padres at Detroit. 24-year-old left-hander. He was a 4th-round selection in the 2021 draft out of West Virginia. Just the 16th ranked prospect in the Padres system right now on MLB Pipeline. Didn't have a great ERA last year in his first full professional season. That ERA was 4.37 in 25 outings between high A Fort Wayne and double A San Antonio. But he struck out 142 batters in 129 innings last year. He's lowered that ERA this year while repeating at double A, a 3.39 mark through 17 starts, 104 strikeouts in 85 innings, only 20 walks, which is super encouraging. It's a leap going from double A to the Padres major league rotation, but we've seen that with some high level pitching prospects in modern baseball. It's not that crazy of a jump. And the Tigers offense is terrible. That's going to be his first matchup. They're very near the bottom of the MLB team rankings and OPS and a bunch of other offensive categories. Wolf might get multiple starts too. If Michael Wacha is out for a while, The Padres have an off day next week and can roll with a 4-man rotation. So maybe he gets sent right back down immediately. But Walker's battling these shoulder concerns over the last couple of weeks. It's been a lingering issue for him throughout his career, really, or at least in the last several years. So Wolf maybe has an opportunity to impress and carve out a real role potentially in that Padres rotation. I think I'd stream him against the Tigers if people are listening to this live. That game starts, I think, around 6 p.m. Local time. And see how he pitches against the Tigers, which is kind of a double-A lineup anyway, and what happens from there. You have to love the strides that he's taken with the command, and while still maintaining a lofty strikeout rate, he looks like he could be a pretty good one for the Padres.
Yeah, he's an interesting name to keep an eye on for sure, and an arm that a lot of people liked in his draft class, and a bit of a slow developer, but I think that he's made some strides this year, and friendly matchup going up against that Detroit lineup for sure. Another guy who's going to be going up against making his MLB debut, and it's funny you mentioned Wolf being ranked 16th in the prospect pipeline. You're not going to find Alan Winans ranked anywhere, but he has been very good this year for AAA Gwinnett and is going to make his MLB debut against Frelick in Milwaukee. Winans so far this year in 18 games, 13 of those starts with AAA Gwinnett, has a 2.81 ERA, an 89-25 strikeout to walk ratio, over 102 innings. A really interesting story. This guy was a 17th round pick out of Campbell University. Yes, it's a university, not just a soup. Actually been to a lot of games down there because when I lived in Virginia, they play a decent quality of baseball, and there's been some quality prospects that have come out of the Big South from there. Was a Rule 5 draft pick by Atlanta, but not the Rule 5 you're thinking of. It's the minor league portion of the Rule 5 draft. He's an interesting story, and I think it's fun. He is not someone I'd be looking to stream. This is a guy who barely gets his fastball over 90 miles per hour. This is not a person with elite secondary stuff. He does have good command, and that will certainly help. I would be willing to take a look at him, just see what happens here, but I wouldn't be shocked if this is a one-off, and I'm sorry to be a velocity, a snob. That's what we'll call it, a velocity snob. You got to throw hard in this league. It's very hard to get away with not throwing hard in this league. And unless your command is elite, unless you are just pinpoint with where you want the ball to go, not just throwing strikes, but throwing strikes where you want to go, it's very hard to have success in Major League Baseball.
I agree. This is probably just a little stopgap start for him. Right. Max Fried should be back. I think he got up to 65 pitches in his latest rehab start on Friday at AAA Gwinnett. Maybe they have him make one more, but AJ Smith-Shawver is an option. He's not been great at AAA since they sent him back down, but Atlanta has some people they can throw at that spot until Fried is ready, and there is a good chance that Fried comes back next Wednesday at Boston. I'm kind of expecting that. So, yeah, he's not a guy that I would be rushing out to grab or even stream. A couple of injury notes before we get into this big pitching discussion. Corey Seager suffered a right thumb sprain on a slide into second base on Friday night against the Dodgers. He's not in the Rangers lineup Saturday, but they haven't placed him on the injured list yet, which is a positive. X-rays were negative for any structural damage, so maybe it will turn out to just be a minor blip. When healthy this season, Seager has legitimately been one of the very best hitters in all of baseball. A 350 batting average, 1044 OPS. He had his 15th homer of the year Friday before exiting, up to 58 RBIs through 66 games. It seems possible, maybe even probable, that he's also held out of Sunday's series finale against Los Angeles, but hopefully he can safely be plugged back into fantasy lineups leading into next week. A thumb sprain, it sounds bad, but there are varying degrees of how bad an injury it is. And for now, it seems like the Rangers don't think it's going to be anything more than just a day-to-day situation. We've seen thumb sprains cost position players several weeks in the past, but I'd say it's an encouraging sign that the Rangers did not just go ahead and IL him before Saturday's game. It seems like they're expecting that he'll be all right.
Yeah, here's hoping, because Corey Seager's just one of my favorite players to watch in baseball. That swing is so pretty, can do everything on the field. Underrated defensive player. Everybody keeps waiting. When the heck is this guy going to move to third base? And he just turns out to be totally fine there. He's not quite as good as the guy that I'm going to talk about, though. Dansby Swanson. Dansby Swanson has missed some time with Drew. Remind me what that injury was with Dansby Swanson again, because my page just died on me. That's just, it's fine. Dansby Swanson's coming back, and that's the important thing here. Has, after signing a massive contract, hit not great numbers, 258, 343, 409, but there have been some real flashes there. Has provided 10 homers, so it's been nice to see some pop from that shortstop position. Big thing here is the defensive bump that you're going to get for the Cubs. Like, this is one of the elite defensive players in baseball, already a 1.4 defensive WAR in just 83 games, according to Baseball Reference. You know, if somebody dropped Swanson in a league because they were impatient, I think he'd be somebody I'd be looking to roster, especially as like a middle infield option, a little bit of a bump in on base percentage leagues, a little bit of a tick against leagues where his walks don't help you. His approach at the plate has really improved this year. His career high in walks is 59. If not for the injury, he was going to crush that. He's walked already 40 times in 83 games, which puts him right around a pace of around 75 to 80 walks. Now, he's also struck out 84 times, which is going to be close to, not really a career high, but puts him on the, Dansby Swanson strikes out an awful lot. You take the bitter and the better with there. But, you know, Dansby Swanson, not a fantasy superstar by any stretch of the imagination, but somebody I'd like in my roster as my middle infielder, or certainly would like as like a nice little bench option.
Yeah, it was a bruised heel. I remember now, and
that's right.
He like hit. It had kind of been a lingering thing, and then he like landed awkwardly on first base before the All-Star break, like at the beginning of July, and that's what prompted them to place him on the IL. He hasn't run as much this year. I mean, he had 18 steals last year with Atlanta. And you were thinking with the bigger bags, maybe this is going to be a 20 stolen base, possibly 20 homer shortstop. I think he's going to miss on both of those targets, partly due to missing some time. But yeah, he's kind of a borderline shortstop in a standard league, and you kind of know what you're getting with him. I love him defensively. I was surprised that when the Cubs wanted to spend this winter that was the direction they went. I feel like, you know, we've seen ups and downs with him. I don't think the offensive upside is like, you know, it's probably what he did, you know, in parts of 2021, 2022. I don't think he's going to like suddenly be a 30 homer hitter. And in fantasy, you want the stolen bases to be there. They haven't really been there this year. And with the heel acting up, like maybe it's still something he's going to have to manage. I don't see him like running a ton down the stretch either, but yeah, he's shown better plate skills, and hopefully it will at least get you some homers and some RBIs and some runs scored the rest of the way.
And let's not forget, Dansby Swanson's dad's name is Cooter. And if you are going to roster somebody, that's as good a reason as any. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of pitching stuff, but first we are going to take a quick commercial break. So we know the weather can impact how far a ball can fly, but we never know what all that heat and humidity or cold air is really doing to the ball. The Home Run Forecast Index gives us an easy way to determine how good or bad the air is for ball flight. The index is calculated by measuring stadium-specific weather conditions and is displayed on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the most unfavorable for good ball flight and 10 indicating the most favorable. There is a strong correlation between the index and the number of runs scored per game and the number of home runs hit. Games that have the highest index of 10 for the whole game average over 10 runs and 2.8 homers over the course of the year. An index is created for each game, so you can see what it will be in any stadium and how the weather's influence might change over the course of the game, as well as the wind direction. Right now, you can get access to the HRF premium site for only $5 a month and see what the index will look like for every hour of every game. Go to homerunforecast.com now to sign up. Okay, so let's talk about some starters. We're going to talk about the young guys that we're really confident on contributing this, not just in 2023, but long-term as well, but really focusing on these young arms that we really like. Drew, just to start, I've seen so much good young pitching this year. It's been kind of crazy. Like, we've seen some good arms come up in 2021 and 2022. Spencer Strider, who we'll be talking about a little bit. Some good stuff. But the quantity and quality in 2023 has been kind of crazy.
Yeah, there have been like useful, you know, young starters coming up every week, and we're not used to that as as people that write and play fantasy baseball. So it's cool to see. I mean, the MLB implemented these rule changes to try to make the game a little more hitter friendly. I don't know. I mean, strikeouts are trending toward an all-time record. I guess there's been a little more contact. The pace of play is better, but we talked about this a few weeks ago. I think the pitchers have figured out how to use the pitch clock to their advantage to really like lock a batter into an at bat. And there's just a lot of arm talent, coming up through the minors, and even guys that like were never like top 100 prospects have come up
Mhm.
and been impactful major league starters. So it's nice to get some new blood. I feel like when I was making out my list for this like theme that we were going to do for this show, I was like, there's a lot of names here that I bet my, parents who like baseball and watch baseball, they watch mostly the Cardinals, I've never heard of. Like,
Sure.
but are guys that are like making real, not just my parents, but like a casual sports fan has probably never heard of, that have, taken real strides and are providing useful fantasy production. And I think we'll continue to do that down the stretch. You want me to start with my
Sure.
first pitcher on the rise? And I
Please and thank
tried
you.
to go a little bit off the beaten path. Like, we're not going to say Spencer Strider's, a pitcher on the rise.
Yeah.
I think we all agree that he's pretty good.
Yeah.
But Gavin Williams is up there on my list.
Mhm.
Gavin Williams turned in another pretty good outing Friday in the Guardians' win over the Phillies. He did issue 4 walks. Also had 4 walks last time out against the Rangers, and that limited him to 4 innings on Friday. But 4 innings of 1-run ball, now showing a 3.74 ERA with 26 strikeouts through his first 33 and 2/3 major league innings. And if you remove his major league debut, which was back on June 21st, which was a bit of a clunker, he has a 3.21 ERA so far. The command has not been as great as we would have liked for Williams so far. It was something he was still working on in the minors before the Guardians called him up. But those same minor league numbers tell me he's going to be more of a strikeouts compiler moving forward. 81 Ks in 60 and a third innings this season on the farm prior to his June promotion. He's got the built up workload too, which, to keep pitching deep into the season, unlike some other young pitchers of like his same variety. Williams was the 23rd overall pick in the 2021 draft out of East Carolina, ascended quickly through the Guardians system with a 2.10 ERA and 230 strikeouts in 175 and a third career minor league innings. He's a big dude at 6'6", listed at 250 pounds. He throws a high 90s fastball, really good changeup. He pitched into the 7th inning earlier this month against Atlanta, which is maybe the best lineup in baseball. I think Gavin Williams is just going to get better and better in future seasons, especially if he reins in that command, but also down the stretch here in 2023. I've seen enough flashes to where he can be someone you plug in every start in a fantasy lineup. He gets the Royals next. That's very tasty. There have been Garrett Cole comps with Gavin Williams, and I know you hate comps, Chris.
Mhm.
And their deliveries are very similar. Like, if you put them back to back, it does look pretty similar, that easy effort kind of thing. But I just say that works. That's going to really work well for Gavin Williams long term in, continuing to grow into a pitcher that can show better command, that has this swing and miss stuff, and can stay durable. Hopefully, you never know with pitchers, but it seems like he doesn't put too much stress on his arm. The way he throws the ball. Let's pump the brakes on the Garrett Cole comps probably, but yeah, I'm very high on Gavin Williams' upside, not only long term, but I think over these final 2 months he can be really effective.
Yeah, I like Gavin Williams. By the way, for those watching, my headphones literally just died. I'm glad that I could just move over to the speaker system on my computer. What can you do? Somebody asked this question, so I'm going to change my order a little bit. By the way, I love Gavin Williams, but I hate that comp so much. Why are we comparing
I
starting
know.
pitchers? But I'm glad you brought it
Sorry.
up. It's very interesting, and if you watch them pitch, there's a similarity too. I'm sure there's been a bunch
Yeah.
of pitching ninja guys who have shown a bunch of stuff and
Overlays.
yeah,
Yeah.
overlays and stuff like that. It's very similar. But since somebody asked, is Andre Munoz a drop right now? Andre Munoz is somebody I was going to bring up anyway. I think on the contrary, I'm a big fan. And look, I'm a Seattle Mariner guy, so I get to watch him play an awful lot. But I like a lot of things about Andre Munoz. Number one, the fact that he throws as hard as anybody in baseball is certainly something to like. And number two, that he has a wipeout slider. But here's one of the reasons why I really like Andre Munoz for the rest of 2023. I'm not sure Paul Sewald is going to be a Mariner for the rest of 2023. It is a seller's market for relievers right now. And the Mariners are still in this thing, but maybe not so much in this thing in a week or so. There's a lot of teams ahead of them right now. And Paul Sewald is going to be somebody that they can get a pretty penny for, I think, and sell high on for a guy who is a good pitcher, but probably not part of their long-term core, even though he's one of the more popular players. But let's just talk about Munoz. Let's look at what he did in 2022 just for a second. He had an expected batting average of 163. He had an expected slugging of 241. He had an expected ERA of 1.84. Now, his strikeouts are down a little bit this year. He's only striking out 36.3% of batters. Isn't that funny to say, only striking out 36.3% of batters? It's insane how great this guy is at missing bats. Hard hit percentage is well and within line. Now, look, his numbers are a little off this year, in part because he missed a bunch of time and he had one absolute blow-up start. Or excuse me, one blow-up relief inning. To be fun to watch Andre Munoz start, but I don't think that's happening anytime soon. Yeah. If anybody could do it, it's the Seattle Mariner pitching development team right now, but I do not expect to see. Actually, Cleveland would be the other one. Could you imagine Andre Munoz, Cleveland system? That'd be fun. Anyway, Andre Munoz is a guy that I think is going to get a lot of save chances down the stretch, even if Paul Sewald is there. And just the rates, folks. Like, Andre Munoz is going to miss a ton of bats. He's going to get a chance. If you play in a hold league, he's going to be. I just wanted to spotlight him because I think he's got kind of lost in the shuffle a little bit. Like, we were talking about him being like one of the best relievers in baseball not that long ago. Because of the injury and the missed time, I think people kind of forgot about how good this guy is. Andre Munoz isn't somebody I'd be dropping. Andre Munoz is somebody that I'd be looking to roster as soon as possible.
While we're on the topic of the Mariners bullpen, so I've just like happened to have been watching a lot of Matt Brash.
Yeah.
Like recently. You got to feel good about what you've seen from him, right? Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, is he fully in a bullpen role now? Like, is that better, or is there a chance that he gets? I've just loved his stuff.
Yes,
since he came up,
because he has the stuff to start, like the fastball, slider, and he'll show occasionally. Doesn't do it now, but occasionally has shown a third pitch. So what happened with Brash is they were talking about lengthening him and giving him a chance to compete for a starting spot. It was never going to happen because if you remember, the Seattle Mariner rotation was as full as anybody else. But then Brash went to the World Baseball Classic, and the Mariners kind of said, all right, if you're going to go do this, we're going to keep you in relief because it doesn't give us the chance to really develop you into. But that dude's stuff, I think his stuff might be better than Andre Munoz. Like his fastball slider combination, that slider is the reason 80 grades exist. If you just watch him pitch and you see it's a 92 mile per hour frisbee that you have no shot at hitting, and sometimes he'll take a little bit off of it and make it more of a knuckle curvish type of pitch that can also be pretty darn effective, but it's been more sweeper. 92 mile per hour sweepers. The world is just crazy right now, Drew Silva. But yeah, Matt Brash is absolutely somebody I like a lot. And if he
I wish he could get into like a fantasy relevant role somehow.
Yes.
Maybe he'll get some saves down the stretch.
Yeah, there you go. If Paul Sewald is gone, I could definitely see them giving Brash a chance. It's funny. If you take a look, his numbers are extremely misleading for a very long time. And Drew, I'm talking a long time, like 40 to 45% into the season, he had a batting average balls in play above 500. So his numbers were extremely inflated. That ERA of 3.3 doesn't come close to tell you how good Brash has been.
No, he's been on a dominant run lately. Yeah. Like, and it looks the part too.
Yes,
I love him, and I wish that he'd get some. Yeah, just I wish he'd. I mean, I'm with the strikeouts. I guess alone, he could have some value if you're playing in like a deeper league, and I don't think he's a bad pickup, speculative ad in case they trade Paul Sewald. Yeah.
Great call.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Am I up now?
Yeah.
All right, Tarek Skubal is going to be my next one, and finally joined the Tigers rotation in early July after completing his recovery from flexor tendon surgery last August. And the initial returns with Skubal were awesome. 8 total scoreless innings through his first 2 starts, 11 strikeouts in that span, only 2 hits and 2 walks over those 8 innings as well. Um, that all followed a very promising 5-start minor league rehab assignment where he had an ERA, like I think it was 1.29 with a bunch of strikeouts and no walks. Then he ran into the absolute buzzsaw that is the Kansas City Royals in his third major league start of the year this past Tuesday. Gave up 7 earned runs over 4 innings in that one. There was talk after the game that he might have been tipping his pitches. That's kind of a common refrain after any bad outing, but who knows? A guy that missed a lot of time, maybe he wasn't thinking about his mechanics well enough to hide the ball or something. But looking beyond that rough outing against Kansas City, the changes that Skubal made coming out of surgery have all made me like very optimistic about what we're going to see the rest of the way from him, what kind of starter he can be moving forward in his career. I mean, he's only 26 years old. He had some
Right.
some flashes when he first came up to the Tigers. The fastball velocity is up a couple of ticks from where it was pre-surgery. I think he's averaging like 96.5 miles per hour with it right now, and it was under 95 before the surgery. His slider usage is up, and it's a really effective slider. He also has a solid changeup that he can throw there too. He had tremendous strikeout totals all through the minors, and Skubal's healthy now with no limitations over the final 2 months of the regular season. They want to probably increase his innings as much as possible. He could be a trade candidate too. I kind of doubt the Tigers would want to be selling low since he hasn't pitched much in 2023, but you could see a contender falling in love with, the new profile and the overall upside. So we'll see on that. I think the Tigers should be falling in love with him and just keeping him because it's not like he's expensive at the moment.
No.
Yeah, looks like Skubal will get the Padres on Sunday. That'll be an interesting matchup. Marlins next week. That's assuming he does remain with Detroit through the trade deadline, and I feel like he will. But I love what I've seen. I love the changes that he made during that rehab, and the results outside of that one start this past week have been really good. And I think he can be an effective fantasy starter over these final 2 months.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a matter of putting it together more consistently. Like this was a legitimate top 5 starting pitching prospect not that long ago and has shown more than enough flashes to say, oh, I understand why that exists. I understand why people were so high on this guy. It just has to do it on a more consistent basis. Every time I think of Skubal, I can't help but think of Casey Mize. I sure hope we get a chance to see him again at some point, but it's
Matt Manning. There's a lot of them.
Oh yeah, there's Manning, Skubal, and Mize in terms of talent that competes with a lot of people. Now about that lineup. No, we're not going to talk about that Detroit Tiger lineup today. Good one to stream against, as we mentioned earlier. But yeah, I'm going to just continue my backwards trend and talk about another reliever. And it's another reliever who doesn't get a lot of save chances, but I'd be rostering Yenier Cano if you can, man. I know that this is not the typical Felix Bautista is going to get the overwhelming majority of save chances. But you just take a look at what Cano has done as a 29-year-old, by the way, who doesn't quite fit the youth that we're talking about. But he has a 1.53 ERA, and most impressive to me is that he's in the 99th percentile in walk rate, Drew, as basically a rookie reliever. Let's be honest. This is basically a rookie reliever who is doing this. And but you take a look at some of the other numbers, 93rd in expected ERA, 85th in expected slugging. He's excellent at avoiding barrels. He gets hitters, thank goodness we don't have to watch pitchers hit against him. He gets hitters to swing at pitches outside of the strike zone. He has a strong fastball. He has a 91 mile per hour changeup that can make people look silly. And a slider is not bad. He probably needs to throw that pitch actually a little bit more, in my personal opinion, but he has the arsenal for success, and he's shown it this year. Like, the thing that's nice about Cano is that he is a guy who can give you not elite strikeout totals, but he can certainly help there. He's going to help you in ERA, and he's going to help you in WHIP. He is going to have clean innings. He is not going to issue any self-inflicted damage. And if you're looking for help in that category, and look, Drew, at this point of the season, it's kind of time to start targeting category stuff. Like it's no longer early. We are well over the halfway point. We are closer to the 2/3 points than we are to the halfway point at this point. That was a lot of points. But yeah, Yenier Cano is absolutely somebody I'm rostering. not over like a legitimate closer or a legitimate ace, but over back end starters and over guys who you're just hoping to get saves, the Justin Lawrences of the world, all due respect. Give me the Yennier Canoes over those guys.
He's faced 175 batters and issued 6 walks.
That's
Like,
crazy.
you love that.
Yeah.
Just to help you with the rate stats. And, he's going to get some saves here and there. He's got 4 already.
It's true.
Felix Bautista will need some nights off. And I think he's going to be a useful fantasy arm down the stretch, even in non-holds leagues. He's looked tremendous.
Real quick, I
so
wanted to
far
say
this year.
I wanted to say something about Felix Bautista. I had a chance to see that guy in person not long ago. That is a massive human being, like
mountain,
absolute mountain of a man. Like, he needs to change names with Bryce Montes de Oca, because Montes de Oca means mountain of geese. Felix is the mountain of geese, man. That is the absolute largest pitcher and Kenley Jansen, the comps to him have been forever. That's a big dude too. Bautista's the guy that I want in my 4 spot for my NBA lineup. That I want that guy banging against those guys to grab me some rebounds. I just had to bring up, that's one of the largest human beings I've ever seen in person. And now I will let you talk about Andrew Abbott.
I'll make him an edge rusher too.
There you
go. Yeah, Andrew Abbott, you brought up, what a rise for him. And I was locked into that start that he made on Thursday afternoon against the Giants. Just had it on while I was working, and he looked great. Like, it wasn't like the best stuff that I've seen from him, but just super comfortable and absolutely cruised. It was against that Giants lineup, which is, easy to navigate, but 8 scoreless innings, only 1 hit allowed, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts on 106 pitches. 106 pitches for 8 innings is pretty good in modern baseball. He actually got a standing ovation after the 7th inning ended. Everyone just assumed he was done, but came back out for the 8th and went 1, 2, 3, I think on 8 total pitches to get a second standing ovation. And then his day was finally over. Abbott now has a 2.10 ERA, a 0.92 whip, 57 to 18 strikeout to walk ratio through his first 55 2/3 major league innings, a 5-2 record in 9 starts for a Reds team that hasn't been great out of the All-Star break, but is certainly a young team on the rise. Abbott had like 1 ugly outing. It was at Milwaukee earlier this month, like the beginning of July. But everything else has been dominant. He had a 12 strikeout game against the Padres, also pitched into the 8th inning of that one. He's passing the eye test for me in terms of like a guy that looks like he belongs. The command has consistently improved since he was taken in the 2nd round of the 2021 draft out of the University of Virginia. The command, the strikeouts, now at age 24, throwing from the left side. His fastball only averages about 93 miles per hour, but his sweeper is excellent. That buzzword, the sweeper, but he throws a really good one. A curve and changeup as well. He has the pitch mix and the control to be a really effective major league starter long term, and heck, he's doing it right now. Gets a sort of revenge start against the Brewers early next week, who beat him up in early July, and looks like that'd be Tuesday, facing off against Corbin Burns. That's a marquee NL Central matchup as far as NL Central matchups
go. Not to toot my own horn, I did recommend Abbott fairly early on in the process here, and I have been I'm good at this sometimes. Sometimes I'm not.
Real proud of you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, there's a lot to like about him. It's not the most elite stuff, but he commands it so well. And it's to use another podcast's name, it's effectively wild too at times. Like he will miss his spots, but he has so much movement on those offerings that it doesn't matter. And he knows that you're going to chase. Hitters chase. It's 2023. There are a lot of hitters that are willing to go expand the strike zone. That's existed forever. But I've been really impressed with what Abbott's done. That I wish he had a different home park. Just it would just be nice if he was playing in Yellowstone instead of Great American Ballpark. But I'm totally fine with the fact that he's going to give me success more often than not. You just have to be prepared to take some homers with it. Another young starter that I wanted to profile, and it's another Mariner. Thanks for doing a pitcher one, because if we did a hitter one, Drew, we would not be talking a lot of young Seattle Mariner talents. And unfortunately for you, there's not a lot of St. Louis young starters that we want to profile as well.
That's the
By
truth.
the way, we keep hearing a lot of talk about the Cardinals and Mariners talking about trade stuff. I'm very curious to see. Jordan Walker for Prelander Burrow is going to be a really interesting trade, and I can't wait to have you on to talk about it afterwards. Yeah, that's not
Wow. Interesting.
yeah. I want to talk about Bryce Miller, who, look, if you take a look at
Yeah.
Bryce
Well,
Miller,
hey, I want Bryce Miller.
yeah,
I mean, we can match up on a trade for that.
I think we could match up on a trade there, but you cannot have him. Like, you take a look at Bryce Miller's ERA of 3.5, and that's certainly good. It's not a bad ERA whatsoever. Let's take away 2 games against the Yankees and the Rangers, where he gave up 15 of his 27 runs. 15 of his 27 runs this year came in 2 starts against, at a time, a good Yankee lineup. Well, not good, but certainly better because they had that Aaron Judge guy playing, and one of the best lineups in baseball in the Rangers. His fastball spin is in the 98th percentile, which, look, that's impressive again altogether. It's a 4-seamer. There are not a lot of people who have that kind of fastball spin with their 4-seam fastball. And you'll watch Miller pitch and you'll be like, why is this guy just throwing the ball down the middle of the plate? It doesn't matter where you throw it. You can't pick it up. There's just so much spin, and it's hard to hit, and it's hard to make hard contact against. The Savant page suggests that there's been a little bit of fortune with him. His average exit velocity is well below average in the 11th percentile. He does give up some hard contact here and there. He will get some barrels as well, but he throws strikes. He pounds the strike zone, which is kind of surprising. It was not the profile he necessarily showed in AA, but he has so much movement on his offerings. I've been extremely impressed with Miller. And the nice thing about Miller is, too, I wanted to mention Brian Wu kind of in this section as well, who I think has been excellent. Yeah. Brian Wu is all but assuredly going to be shut down very soon. He has never thrown before this year more than 57 innings in any season, and that includes college. So you're asking him to double what he's done is basically right, and that's only going to be 114 innings and already at 82. It doesn't sound like Bryce Miller's getting the shutdown too soon here, which is big because you're going to have him in the lineup. I'm going to focus, just so everybody knows, on a pitcher that did get the shutdown and why we're going to be talking about him. That's a little bit of a tease, Drubert, that we're going to be talking about that guy. But Bryce Miller's been really impressive. Has a decent defense behind him. I wish that the offense was better so you could be more talking about the win chances. But outside of 2 absolute stinkers, he's been as good as any young starter in baseball.
Gets the underperforming Twins offense next. That'll be on Wednesday, it looks like, unless he's a member of the Cardinals at that point.
Wishful thinking.
Then I'll be very happy. I think it's, speaking of Cardinals, they're playing the Cubs right now, and I think it's worth discussing Adbert Alzolay, who has quickly emerged as the Cubs closer, and a pretty good one at that. Got another save Friday afternoon against the Cardinals, his 4th or 5th save so far in July. I think he blew one just before the break, but overall a 2.57 ERA, 46 strikeouts to only 7 walks in 42 innings this season, 8 total saves, and a lot of those coming in the last couple of weeks. This is a former top 100 prospect, Alzolay. He was in the 2019 Futures game when he was coming through the Cubs system as a starting pitching prospect, and maybe they will try the starting thing with him again. He's been okay as a starter in spurts, but this role right now that he's in seems to really be suiting Alzolay. And even if the Cubs might ship off some parts at the trade deadline, he will not be part of that. He's still in his pre-arbitration years. They've been patient, hoping that he'd round into this really effective pitcher that he is now in this relief role. So the ball's going to keep going to him in save situations down the stretch. I feel confident in that, and everything, looks great. That slider and that 4-seamer and the sinker. He's something close to a top 10 reliever already by a lot of good, real life metrics. Not top 10 in fantasy because he hasn't really just had the opportunity to rack up save chances. But I think over the next 2 months, with getting save chances, and if he keeps pitching like he has with the command and the strikeouts, I think he could wind up being, sort of a league winning reliever down the stretch. He's looked that good to me, which is cool because it's been a long and kind of winding road for Alzolay.
Yeah, and that long and winding road is why I think that you're never going to see him start again. You have your comfort here. certainly I think has the stuff to be a starter someday, but it's just probably easier to keep him in a role that he's shown success with and offers a little bit less stress. I think sometimes people forget that there is stress for a reliever, by the way. You're getting up and down an awful lot. It's still an unnatural motion to throw a baseball overhand. It's not exactly the safest route, but it's the easiest way to get him at his maximum best. Like that call a lot. I want to talk about Hunter Brown. And Hunter Brown, if we were doing this 3 or 4 weeks ago, we might be talking about a much different upside type of guy. He's really struggled so far in the month of July. 12 in the third innings. He's given up 24 hits. He's given up 12 runs. That's an 8.76 ERA. And he has struck out. And this is what I want to say is why I'm still excited about him. In those 12 in the third innings, he struck out 21 batters and he's only walked 3 guys. All 3 of those walks coming against the Mariners on his final start before the All-Star break. I'm so impressed with this guy's stuff, Drew. Like, I think that you're going to take a look at that ERA and think, is this somebody to sell high on? He'd be somebody I'd be looking to add. He's a very important part of that Houston rotation now, which is what we kind of expected due to injuries and stuff like that. And his swing and miss stuff, it's so palpable. Yes, there are going to be some clunkers. Every single name that we mentioned is going to have a few bad outings because of their youth and because maybe outside of Yenny Cano, just because he throws so many dang strikes, maybe he can't have those bad outings. But I'm sure reliever ERA is one of the most volatile categories you can possibly have. So that 1.53 can become 2.7 real quick. But I'm just a massive fan of Hunter Brown. I like the fact that he's playing for Houston, who's going to give him plenty of win chances. And in the year of our Lord 2023, win chances mean an awful lot in fantasy baseball. That's just the way it works. I'm sorry, folks. Someday we might get it changed. Drew and I are going to do our very best to get the stat removed at the next big fantasy summit. No, we're not. But we would very much be in favor of signing any type of petition for anybody who does it. But Hunter Brown's going to get those win chances. He's going to get those strikeouts. You take the risk of having a few starts like he's had in July, but I think the overall Hunter Brown experience is going to be a positive one.
He was a very popular sleeper. He wasn't even a sleeper by the end of like fantasy draft season because once it looked like he was going to be locked into that Houston rotation, and I'd say overall he's been, about what I would expect. Like,
Yeah.
The ERA isn't dominant, the whip's not dominant, but the strikeouts have been there, and there've been good stretches and bad stretches. It's kind of what you would expect from a young starter. But overall, this has been a really good step forward kind of year for him, and I'm gonna be having a lot of shares of Hunter Brown going into 2024.
Sure.
No doubt about that. Here's kind of an under the radar name, Steven Wilson, who's in a setup role right now with the Padres. I don't think the Padres are going to sell or like do a lot of selling. They're 4 games under 500 as we talk here on Saturday afternoon, but playing a little bit better. And obviously with a ton of talent, enough to maybe make a charge into the NL wildcard hunt. But would they consider trading Josh Hader like at a total high point for Hader, which is saying something because he's been great in a lot of years, but he's been really great this year and he's going to be a free agent. I would bet the Padres are at least listening. Like maybe they feel like they can still get into the playoffs, but do they need Hader? And is it worth risking just losing him to the free agent market? I don't know. Robert Suarez is back. He was activated from the 68-day injury list earlier this week. He missed the entire first half of the season after signing that big contract with the Padres to return to San Diego over the winter. Hopefully he's right. He might not be right. He had an arm injury. But then there's Steven Wilson too, like who, it isn't a well-known name to the more casual fan or even casual fantasy manager, but this year, a 2.70 ERA, 42 strikeouts in 40 innings. He's given up only 23 hits. He's finished 3 games, no saves yet. But if Hader does get dealt, that could very well change, especially if the struggles that Robert Suarez had on his minor league rehab assignment carry over into his major league work. The Padres would need a reliable ninth inning guy, and Wilson could be that guy. Again, I think people are I don't think people have like really been paying attention to how solid Steven Wilson has been, even going back to his rookie year last year.
Yeah.
And that he could be a fit for more high leverage looks moving forward. It's not a name you need to go out and grab for sure, but just keep an eye out of if those Josh Hader trade rumors fire up in the next 10 days. It might be a smart move for the Padres to do. I know they feel like if they could get into the playoffs, they could be a dangerous team, but they also have to be realistic. And if they can get something for Hader, like some serious prospects, I think that they might do that.
I think so too. I'll just say that if AJ Preller, if you're listening to this, and I know you are, we know that you're a big fan of this podcast, and we really appreciate it. If you are trading Josh Hader, you better get some relief help with him too. Like, go get your prospects and stuff like that, but get somebody who can help you this year as well. Because the National League wild card is a cesspool, Drew. Like, we've talked a lot about the divisions being so bad. Like, that third wild card spot right now, heck, even the top two wild card spots right now, all due respect to your Arizona Diamondbacks, who you've loved, they're starting to show some wear and tear. The Giants did have a 7-game winning streak, and they followed it up with a 3-game losing streak. Cincinnati has played some flawed baseball. Like, you just take a look at the last 10 of these teams. Most of them are 4-6 or 3-7. There is a lot of opportunity here still for San Diego to get in. And once San Diego's in, they're as talented, in my opinion, as any team in baseball. One of those teams that is still in that wild card hunt is the Miami Marlins. And I think you might have heard this, Drew, that they sent down Yuri Perez. I just wanted to focus on Yuri Perez real quick. It stinks. I hate this situation so much. I understand it, especially for a 20-year-old who does not have a whole lot of innings worked in. But I still hate it because he was pitching. Like, if you take away that absolute disaster of a 2/3 innings start, this guy's ERA was like 1.5 or something like that before that outing. And it's still pretty darn good. I'm absolutely still rostering Yuri Perez. Even if he comes back in a relief role, I'm still excited about Yuri Perez because of the rate stuff. And the rate stuff is going to matter more when Yuri Perez is up. He's going to be a huge helper in categories. And how many guys can you say that are available on the waiver wire, Drew, that have remotely the upside that Yuri Perez has, right? Like, it's a little bit the Family Guy, a boat's a boat, but the mystery box can be anything. You got the boat. Yuri Perez is your boat. Keep him on your bench. It stinks that you're going to have to wait a little while. It's not clear what the heck the Marlins' plan is for this guy. They sent him down and he hasn't pitched.
That's the problem.
That's the hardest part about it. Without question is that the fact that you don't know what's going to go on. But there's very little doubt in my mind that he's going to come up again, pitch, and pitch well. And if you have to wait 2 or 3 weeks, heck, if you have to wait until September, what are you getting over these next 5 weeks that can come anywhere close to what Yuri Perez can provide you?
Yep. I wanted to mention Zach Eflin in this list too. He's just been great for the Rays, and credit to them for being aggressive over the winter. And what was it, a 3-year, $40 million contract, which is a big check for that Rays organization. Dominated the Orioles again on Friday. But I worry about like him running into a wall. This is a big increase in innings for him, operating as a traditional starter after being more of a swingman in his years in Philadelphia, especially his final year. I'd maybe consider like selling high on him in fantasy if you're in just a standard redraft league. Michael Lorenzen's a similar story to Eflin, getting a chance to work as a normal starter with the Tigers. He's got a 21 2/3 scoreless inning streak right now. It's coming off his first career All-Star nod, but Detroit is going to trade him. They'll trade him to a contender, which is intriguing for fantasy purposes. But he's seen a big workload jump. Does he run into a wall at some point too? I love what Eflin and Lorenzen have been doing, but they'd be more in probably the sell high territory for me. Rather than guys that I feel like are on the rise for the stretch run.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call with both of those guys. Both have provided plenty of value, but unlike the guys that we just talked about, they are more the sell high guys than the guys that you definitely want to have on your roster. Let's talk about some Cy Young stuff, Drew. I am kind of fascinated. Drew posted the odds here. Now, look, it's still July 22nd, so there's time to go. But normally, and I could be wrong here, I feel like we have a pretty prohibitive favorite in at least one of the leagues. Not this
Mm-hmm.
year, Drew. There are a lot of guys here that are in striking distance according to the odds. The American League and National League. I'll let you go over them just because this was your baby that you put together. But I am fascinated by how many arms are so close in this race.
Yeah, it is a pretty interesting discussion, and there's some names on here that we don't need to mention, but at the top, because they're just not going to win it. But at the top in the American League right now, we have Garrett Cole at plus 220, Framber
Mhm.
Valdez at plus 330, Kevin Gausman at plus 380, Shane McClanahan at plus 400, Nathan Eovaldi at plus 800, and then you get into some deep plays. Shohei Ohtani plus 2,500. Luis Castillo plus 2,500, Sonny Gray plus 9,000, and then it's a lot of 9,000s.
Yeah.
Um, I think that I would just go with Garrett Cole here. Um, I, Shane McClanahan could do it. Like if he's fully healthy, and gets the strikeout total back to where it can be down the stretch, I would throw a dart at him. Kevin Gausman's just so solid too, though. I
Yes.
feel like he's like a really nice play at plus 380. You're right, man. Like this is going to come down to the wire. I think this is the right four names. I don't think Eovaldi's gonna get there, but I think Cole, Valdez, Gausman, McClanahan. Which one would you take considering those odds? I feel like a goal at Cole at plus 220 is actually kind of a nice value bet
It
just
is a
because
nice
you're
bet.
getting plus odds. Yeah.
Yes. I would be looking to be honest with you, sprinkle a little bit on all four of those guys because of the fact that I'm getting
Mm,
plus odds. I like Gausman a lot. And I think the thing that might help Gausman, it shouldn't matter, but I do wonder if the fact that I could see the Yankees falling out of this thing, Drew. I do wonder,
yeah.
and I don't think Toronto, flawed roster, has been a bit of a disappointed offensively. I think they're a playoff team. And I think the fact that Gausman has been close a few years also plays into this factor a little bit as well. I would say this too 25-1 for Shohei Ohtani and Luis Castillo is at the very least intriguing because look, Castillo, when he's been on, has been as good as anyone in baseball. And Otani's numbers, you take a look, have been phenomenal. And if the Angels are in this thing, and I really, even as a Seattle Mariner fan who wants the Mariners to make the playoffs so flippin' bad, I want the Angels to be in playoff contention. I want Shohei Ohtani to get a chance to pitch in October. And if he's going to get a chance to pitch in October, you're going to see him on the mound an awful lot more than I think that we have so far, especially if you're the Angels and you're really not that concerned about what the long-term thing is if you don't think you're going to get this dude signed. By the way, stop
Yeah.
asking. Shohei Ohtani's not getting traded. Shohei Ohtani, unless the Angels just absolutely fall apart, Shohei Ohtani is not getting traded. You do not trade the real Babe Ruth. You don't do it. It just doesn't happen. I'd rather have
It could curse the organization, but they're gonna lose him anyway. I don't. It's a tough call, man. It's
so
I
look, I personally would go get the bag. I would trade Shohei Ohtani and get whatever the heck I wanted. Like you can have
yeah.
whatever you want for Shohei Ohtani. I personally would do it, but there's the marketing thing.
They're not gonna do it.
They're
Yeah,
not going
they're
to do
not
it.
gonna do it.
It's not going to happen. I hope I'm
Yeah.
wrong, honestly, because then I can stop rooting for the Angels. It'll be nice for me not to root for the Los Angeles Angels. But I think at 25-1 for both those guys, that's intriguing.
Yeah.
Sonny Gray at 90-1 was kind of appealing as well, but I think it really is down to these four. But all four of those guys, you can make such a good case for. In the National League, Drew, I'm looking
Yeah.
at these odds as well. It is kind of seem like it's a two-man race right now, but there's some other guys
Mhm.
who have a shot.
Yeah, Zach Gallen plus 220 is the favorite right now. Spencer Strider at plus 250. Blake Snell plus 425. He's been in a real groove lately.
Yeah.
Logan Webb plus 700. Justin Steele plus 1,800. Clayton Kershaw plus 2,200. Marcus Stroman plus 2,500. Corbin Burns plus 2,500. Zach Wheeler, Jesus Luzardo. I like to see his name on the list, but he's at plus 4,000. I'm all about Spencer Strider here, and I know that Zach Gallen has been awesome, but I think at the end of the day, Strider's strikeouts,
Mhm.
it's a younger voting block, and he's got everything else too. The ERA, I think, could be better, but the way that he has dominated batters, and like, I mean, he just every time out, it seems like it's a double-digit strikeout game with Spencer Strider. I think that's going to matter if he does that for the next 2 months. I think it's going to be his award. Um, I'm surprised actually that he's not the favorite. Just the way that the voters vote now, they factor in strikeouts,
Oh yeah.
and more than ERA. And you gotta consider the entire picture, but I think the entire picture at the end of the season with Strider is going to be the NL Cy Young Award winner, unless there's some kind of injury.
Yes. Just for those of you who are listening that don't know what like plus 220 or plus 1800 means, if you're doing it fractionally, it's like 1.8 to 1. So if you're plus 220, if you bet $100, if that bet wins, you would win $220. Just for those who aren't familiar with that, I think it can be a little bit confusing, especially when you see the minuses, like the minus 165, that get real confusing. But luckily, nobody is that prohibitive of favorite.
Yeah.
Do I like?
Don't bet a minus on an award.
Yes.
Like,
no, unless we get to like if Ronald Acuna can give me like minus 115, I'd be kind of tempted to bet a little bit on that, just because
you know what,
like,
there was I was looking this up when I was posting those odds. There's a prop on DraftKings. I could pull it up really quickly, where you can bet Ronald Acuna to win the NL MVP or the field. And if I could pull up, here we go. Player awards. Sorry. All right. Yeah. Ronald Acuna. Ronald Acuna versus any other player for National League MVP. Acuna is minus 550, or any other player is plus 390.
wow.
Like, I mean, if you're gonna sprinkle a little bit on any other player, you're hoping that Acuna gets hurt, which I don't like.
That's the thing.
Live my life that way.
I am knocking on so much wood right now that is not around, because we do not want that. But let's be honest, that would be the thing that you'd be betting on, or just a disaster of a second half, I guess, is possible. But that guy has been so good and so talented that I can't imagine. I'll be curious to see. I'd be curious to see if there's a Carroll versus the field in NL Rookie of the Year as well. Just because he's been so good this year, and all due respect to guys like Kodai Senga and a few other guys, I imagine he has.
There is a Carroll versus the field. National League Rookie of the Year, Carroll to win it is minus 500. Any other player is plus 330. Ellie De La Cruz is at plus 400 alone. That's but like, if you look at the players that are behind them, it's going to be Carroll or Cruz. It's going to be Carroll.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe something happens to him, because after that it's Matt McLean at plus 3,000, Francisco Alvarez at plus 3,000, guys who are not going to win it. So I don't know. If you're someone who's betting rooting for an injury, I would put the plus 400 on Ellie De Cruz rather than any other player at plus 330.
And if you are somebody who's betting on an injury, please do not talk to me, because we probably don't have a whole heck of a lot in common. But it is
who's going to win it in the AL though? Josh Young probably. Masataka Yoshida, Gunnar Henderson. War really loves Gunnar Henderson.
They do, yeah. I think that's ultimately, especially, and there will be a narrative too of the fact that barring a significant collapse, the Orioles are probably going to win the division, to be honest with you. The Rays.
What about the Rangers though with Young?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. That's
a narrative too.
Yeah, that is a really interesting one. Maybe we can talk about that on the next show, what we would like to look at for let's do that. That sounds like a plan. I love when a plan comes together. Real quick, Spencer Strider for sure. That would absolutely be what I would be laying my chips on. I love Blake Snell as a person, and I think that it's been awesome to see him strike out. I don't know if I'll ever trust Blake Snell. Like, it's just so hard. There's so many blips on the radar that can just absolutely destroy you. And I like Zach Gallen a lot too, but I just think that the strikeouts are so good, and with Strider, and the fact that he is, I don't know, a little bit better story. Maybe he gets the Cy Young of the Year. A lot of people think he should have won Rookie of the Year last year, Drew. A lot of people believe that should have been his award. Maybe this is his comeuppance. Maybe that's a little bit of a weird word to say, but whatever. Let's talk about some streamers for tomorrow before we close, Drew. Who do you like for Sunday? And can you actually give somebody a good player this time?
I know. Yeah, Tyler Anderson gets the Pirates on Sunday. This one has to work. In Anaheim, he hasn't been close to the pitcher the Angels maybe thought they were getting when they signed him to that 3-year contract over the winter. Had a 2.57 ERA and 178 innings last season with the Dodgers. He's had a 5.17 ERA through 87 innings here this season with the Angels. This is just typical Angels stuff, but he's pitched a lot better lately. The strikeout rate is up overall, facing an easy to navigate Pirates lineup. I think he gives you some ERA help, some strikeouts, and a good shot at a win. Tyler Anderson's my pick. Yeah, let's see if I can actually win one of these against you, Chris.
I think you might have a decent shot because I'm throwing a shot in the dark. I'm going to go with Luis Medina, and it's partially because I watched that guy pitch last Tuesday and was very impressed with what I saw. 5 2/3 innings of shutout baseball. Take a look at the overall numbers of a 5.79 ERA, and you're not going to be terribly impressed. But this was a guy who a lot of people thought was one of the most underrated and had as high of a ceiling for a starting pitching prospect as anybody when he was a member of the Yankees. Now, injury stuff and the results so far this year for a very, 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 I don't know how many varies I could possibly say, bad baseball team in the Oakland Athletics. I'm going to stop calling them AA Midland. It's just not nice. And those players are trying their heart outs, baby. But I like Medina. And I think the Houston Astros lineup, while certainly better than Oakland's, is beatable. I think it is a team that you can get the strikeouts for. And he's coming off a really impressive start, and there have been just enough flashes of brilliance that, look, if you're somebody who likes to take risks like I am, why not give Medina a shot?
And it's at Oakland too. Yeah, yep. I actually really like that play.
Like a lot of foul territory.
You're probably going to win again, and yeah, well, whatever.
Well, whatever, man. Like you've got nothing going on. You have plenty of time to update these, edit these, and put it together. What we don't tell people is that Drew actually goes in and manually edits every single podcast for RotoWire, and he's just looking for a little bit of a break. And
I have to cut a lot of your nonsense. You know, so it's tedious. It's tedious work.
Release the Snyder Cut, release the Chris Crawford actual full podcast. That's going to do it for us. Oh, by the way, real quick, it's not going to do it for us. Go see Barbie. Barbie is incredible. It's one of the funniest movies I've seen in a long time. I wanted to do the Barbenheimer double feature. I wasn't able to because I had a 4 and a 6-year-old with me, and they probably would not enjoy 3 hours of a nuclear war movie directed by Christopher Nolan. But I'm going to go see that on the IMAX screen at the Pacific Science Center because I need to see that on the biggest possible screen. But Drew, go see Barbie. It is hilarious. It features the funniest last line of a movie that I've ever seen in my entire life.
No spoilers, dude.
I'm not going to tell you. It's just the last line.
It seems actually hard to spoil a Barbie movie, but yeah. I'm a big Greta Gerwig fan.
Oh, she's perfect. She doesn't miss.
So I'm going to go see it.
She doesn't miss. By the way, she's writing the Snow White movie right now for Disney, so that should be very interesting as well. So it's okay.
Get that bag, Greta. Get that bag.
Real quick, since somebody asked, their daughter's 8 years old, is it okay to take your daughter to see Barbie? Yeah, I think so. There's some innuendo stuff, and there's going to be some gender stuff that probably goes over her head. I don't want to, your daughter might be a genius. I could just tell you my 6 and 4-year-old nieces didn't understand what was going on in terms of that as well. But it's beautiful. It's funny. It's mostly clean fun. There's just a couple of spots. I turned this into a movie review podcast, and I knew I would do it someday. Thanks so much for everybody who's been listening. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Crawford_MILB. Drew is reluctantly at Drew Silva. Rate and review the show if you like what you're hearing. Hit that subscribe button as well. And make sure you check out every single day a new episode from RotoWire and their fantasy baseball podcast. It's been fun. Me and Ryan will be back tomorrow. See you guys soon.